Hi! If you can hear your tumble dryer motor but the tub isn't going round, then there's a fair chance that your belt is either broken or come off. When it comes to refitting the belt onto the drum, there are two options. One is to remove the front of the machine and slide it over the drum that way, and the other is to undo the rear bearing and fit it that way. Because there are two options, we've made two videos, one for each option. In this video I'll be replacing the drive belt in a Hotpoint CTD condenser tumble dryer using option 1 by removing the front. The tools I needed to accomplish this task were a Phillips screwdriver in whichever form you choose, manual or powered, a large flat bladed screwdriver, an 8mm socket and wrench, a pair of engineer's pliers, a pair of long nose pliers, they're optional, and a multimeter or mega. First take the top off by undoing the two screws on the back and then slide it to the rear. It may be tight, but it will come off. The side panel is held on by 4 screws on the back edge and 1 on the top at the front. When these have been taken out, you can ease the panel backwards and lift it up away from the base. Now move to the front of the machine and open the door. Undo the top hinge screws, but hold the door when you take out the last screw or it will drop down. Although you don't need to remove the door to fit the belt, it does prevent the front of the cabinet from becoming awkwardly unbalanced when you remove it. The next unrelated thing to come off is the lower filter cover. This will just unhook. With that out of the way, now unclip the large filter and slide it out. The filter cover has to come off because you'll be standing right next to the machine when you lift the front off, and the filter has to come out because you'll need somewhere to put your foot to hold the machine down while you're doing it. Next, remove the 3 screws along the front. These hold the front panel to the base of the machine. Remove the water reservoir and put it somewhere out of the way. Now you can get to the 2 screws in the recess. Remove all 3 screws on the right hand top edge of the fascia panel, because although the centre one doesn't screw into the support bar on the side of the cabinet, it does go through it and could prevent it from coming off if left in place. Grip the top edge of the door opening and ease the front panel up and away from the cabinet. Hold the machine down by putting your foot in the opening left by the filter, or you could end up dragging the machine all over the floor. With the front off, you can slide the belt over the drum. At this point you only need to get the belt onto the drum. Don't worry about fitting it just yet. Now comes the fun bit, getting the front panel back onto the cabinet. The lower section of the drum has to be fitted between the nylon outer bearings and the felt inner bearing sleeve, and to do this the drum must be lifted while the front is pushed onto it. When this is done, the whole thing must be lowered into the opening on the base section of the cabinet. It looks easy but can be awkward. Now refit the 3 screws on top of the fascia. As I said earlier, the centre one doesn't screw into the support bar, but it has to come out anyway. The ducting which houses the water reservoir will probably need a bit of lining up to make sure it fits the front panel properly before the screws can be fitted. Whereas the 3 screws at the base of the front panel should already be lined up. Refit the main large filter, making sure it's the right way up, and lock it in place. The filter cover is the next to go on, and if you fit it as though it were closed, then just tap the lower edge where the pivot points are. It will click into place easily. To fit the belt onto the pulley, you first need to release the wires on top of the fan housing. Then use a flat bladed screwdriver and lever one of the side clasps out. This will free the housing for you to lift it up and out of the way. The impeller is attached to the motor shaft by a spring clasp, which will need compressing to free it. Once it's off, the impeller can be levered away from the shaft. Give the jockey wheel a few turns just to make sure it's not seized up. Undo the bolt furthest from you and remove it. Then loosen the other bolt about 2 turns, just enough so you can pivot the pulley assembly downwards. There is a small bracket on the inside of the pulley assembly which hooks onto the motor casing, so it will need a bit of wiggling to free it. Hold the belt over the motor shaft and hold it tight against it. Feed the belt up to the plastic housing and ease it towards the motor while turning the shaft with your other hand. This will feed the belt through the small gap and onto the drive section of the shaft. With the jockey pulley lowered, the belt can be eased over the wheel, and with the aid of a screwdriver the pulley assembly can be levered up to tighten it. Make sure the assembly is pushed tight against the motor when it is levered up, for the bracket on the rear of the pulley assembly to locate in the motor housing, or you won't get the bolt to fit. Once you have fitted and tightened the pulley assembly, turn the drum slowly a few times just to line up the belt onto the existing track mark on the drum. In this way you know it won't come off as soon as you start the machine up. Refit the impeller, but be careful not to push it onto the motor shaft too far or it will rub against the housing. Try to have the end of the shaft just in line with the internal sleeve on the impeller, the bit that the spring clamp goes onto. And if you need to tap the impeller onto the shaft, this is the part you want to hit, not the blade section, as this will bend and make it uneven when turning, causing the motor to vibrate as it spins. It can be a bit awkward getting the spring clasp to fit over the impeller sleeve, so if you use a screwdriver to ease it on, this helps. Once that's on, you can refit the other part of the housing and clip it in place. Don't forget to resight the cables and any other connections you may have disturbed. The side panel can now be replaced and refitted with the 4 screws down the back and the 1 screw on top. Replace the top. They tend to go back a lot easier than they come off, and finally screw it down. But before you switch it on, just do an earth continuity test to make sure the earth's okay. Turn the meter to the 200 scale and place one probe on the earth terminal of the plug and the other on any exposed part of the cabinet. You should get a reading, but if there is no reading, then you have no earth, so you've got to re-examine the appliance. On behalf of Selfix UK, we'd like to thank you for watching this video and hope you found it useful. Goodbye.